I'm a guy who knows the data at LinkedIn, and here's some things that you should probably know. But what you do is you go on there and you select that you're open to work right now. And then what happens is recruiters then search using that data. And recruiters are more likely to reach out to you because if I'm a recruiter, I want to see who's more open to the requests I'm sending them.
Do you have any idea of how much more likely you are to hear from recruiters when you set this properly?
About 2 times more likely.
My friend Brian Shu is a data scientist at LinkedIn. He spends his days studying data from LinkedIn, things like what makes certain LinkedIn profiles stick out to recruiters and what jobs are in the highest demand. Because so many people are looking for jobs these days, I wanted to sit down with Brian and have a conversation about what tips he has to help you get your next offer letter. We talk about everything from hiring trends during COVID to ways to optimize your profile that'll get recruiters reaching out to you. If you want to support this channel, hit the like button and the subscribe. And if you really want to support the channel, go to the description. There are Amazon affiliate links down there. Just click on any one of them. And if you happen to purchase something on Amazon in the next 30 days, I will get a referral kickback from that. So you don't have to buy those specific things, just click the links. And if you naturally make a purchase, I will be very appreciative. Now let's get into the conversation with Brian Shu, the data scientist at LinkedIn. Brian Shu, thank you so much for joining.
Of course, nice to meet you.
Quick intro, so you're a data scientist at LinkedIn. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and why it's important?
Yeah, so I'm a data scientist at LinkedIn, and I use LinkedIn data to say things about the economy. So when you log on to your LinkedIn profile and you might make some changes to your profile, let's say you add a position or you have a location and then you change it to another location, we can tell economic trends from that data. So for example, when you add a position on your profile, we count that as a hire. And so what I can do is then count the number of hires for a given city, maybe for a different given country, and then we can establish a hiring rate. How is hiring doing over time? And then what is important right now especially is looking at how the pandemic is affecting the economy. And so that's a little bit of the work I do at LinkedIn.
So that's actually super interesting. What are you finding right now in the US for job data or for, I guess, on people's LinkedIn profiles?
So what we found in terms of hiring was that hiring, as you might expect, has mimicked the pandemic. So globally, hiring plummeted in China first, and then it spread to Europe as the pandemic spread. And then afterwards, it spread to the US and now other countries. And so hiring basically plummeted, standstill around April and May.
Yeah.
Things started coming back up. However, there's been some secondary spikes in the United States, and then hiring has gone back down. And it's hit certain industries more than others. So you're probably feeling this if you work in retail or restaurants, food service, or entertainment.
Yeah.
A lot of things, face-to-face services are pretty canceled. And so a lot of people are looking for what their next job might be just because the future of the industry could be unclear.
So part of this video is I want to make sure that the people who are sort of down and out from a job perspective right now, to give them some tips, insights, especially obviously LinkedIn is like here in the US is like the number one tool probably aside from the resume itself. And you know what I mean? Like it's arguably more important. So that's part of what I wanted to cover in this video. Originally, the way I came across you is through TikTok. You're making LinkedIn tips on TikTok. So can you throw a few tips, including the one that you posted on TikTok, for the folks that came here just to find out how to get a job these days?
Yeah, so for me, I'm not sure if I'm marketing myself as a career coach. I think what I'm at is I'm a guy who knows the data at LinkedIn, and here's some things that you should probably know. And so in terms of what I shared on TikTok that you probably saw is a feature that I really like called Open to Work. You can just Google it and there will be some help articles for you to like figure out the product. Yeah. But what you do is you go on there and you select that you're open to work right now, especially if you don't have a job, but even if you're just passively looking. So for example, I currently have a job, but maybe I'm open to work in another location or a different type of job. I can include those job preferences. And then what happens is recruiters then search using that data. And so you will appear in recruiter searches as having selected that open to work.
Yeah.
And recruiters are more likely to reach out to you because if I'm a recruiter, I want to see who's more open to the request I'm sending them. And I know that they'll probably be more responsive. And so that is something that's very helpful and something people have used. Also, if they're moving, let's say that I currently live here, I'm going to move to New York. You can put your job preferences as in New York, and then you'll start appearing in those preferences.
Oh,
and
that's
so
interesting.
this is a very helpful tool just for people to indicate what they're about and what they want to do next, just so recruiters can know.
Do you have any idea of how much more likely, like if you weren't to set your profile to open, essentially it's like open to opportunities, that sort of thing? I can try to find a link or a click path for people to put in the description, but do you have any idea of how much more likely you are to hear from recruiters when you set this properly?
A previous stat, it's a couple years old now, is about 2 times more likely.
Okay.
Not sure the numbers haven't been updated since then, but it's definitely more likely because also anecdotally, recruiters at my own company have heard from other recruiters that that's something they filter for first. So if you develop a pool of your candidates, you definitely want to select the people who are more open first because they're probably more likely sure hits.
Something that I found, it's funny that it's like it takes going to someone's profile who you've worked at LinkedIn for like at least a few years now, right?
Yeah, coming on 4, yeah.
4 years. So I looked at your LinkedIn profile and I was like, of course his profile is going to be like on point.
It has to be. It has to be on brand
right?
for me, right? I can't be like, I'm the guy who works at LinkedIn. My friends go to LinkedIn, like, your LinkedIn is trash. No, I can't have a trash LinkedIn.
Your LinkedIn really is probably the best LinkedIn profile I've seen in terms of like form and like telling a story and using all of the features, right?
I'm so honored.
So I'll link your LinkedIn so people can see what I'm talking about. Like, seriously, for the people watching this, just go copy Brian's profile, because not copy it, but like copy the format, because it really reads very, very well. But can you talk a little bit to what you did in your profile to make it so like consumable and so like feature rich?
Yeah, so for me, first of all, thank you for the compliment.
You're very welcome.
I really appreciate that. That means a lot, especially from a guy who works at LinkedIn, because a lot of my colleagues also have very good LinkedIn profiles. So I think for me, it was thinking, one, what do I want to get out of this? It's like, do I want recruiters to look at this? Because am I actively pursuing a job? Because I might shift my LinkedIn a different way.
Yeah.
I think for me, it was to present myself as I work at LinkedIn and I do use a lot of these LinkedIn features. And also, I really wanted to give a little bit more of a personal flair to it too.
Yeah.
And that I'm passionate about data and telling stories with data. And so some of the things I thought about, it can start with, first, have a good photo.
Yep.
Don't do a car selfie. Don't do a crop photo. Have a nice photo of you smiling at the camera. Can just be taken with an iPhone. Like iPhone photos are pretty high quality these days.
Good lighting.
Good lighting.
Go stand next to the window. Like, important.
Yeah. And honestly, that type of skill is really happening with these Zoom calls. You notice I put my laptop here right behind the sun, and so I get some good lighting on my face, and so all these type of things are really coming into play.
Here's my total
crap
LED light. Anyway.
And then for me, I think an important part is actually your about section. It's actually a pretty unique section because it's something that's not on a typical resume. Because a typical resume is like pretty straightforward. So for your about section, what I put is, what am I doing now? What have I done before? And for some people, what do you want to be doing in the future?
Yeah.
A lot of that particularly is for students. Because you might not have had full-time work experience. And so it's good to state, what am I looking for? Just so when a recruiter sees that, they can perhaps fit you with a job. And then for me also, it's adding a little bit of personal touch, like what kind of human are you outside of work as well.
Yeah.
And then about that, it's using kind of the features on also recognizing the basic tenet of people don't really want to read that much. And so
totally
when you write in the way to keep people reading or keep it short enough so people get to the message and get to the end of what you're saying.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, there goes I told you my light was crappy.
Okay.
The battery just fell out. I need a new light. I really do. Anywho, So the format that, if I remember correctly, the format that your profile follows is a couple of links to like resources that are relevant to your work and or produced by you, like the report, I think it's like a jobs report that you have, and then like essentially like a 1, 2, 3 bullets of what you're about in this role, and that's really it.
What you're about in the role. If you work maybe at a company where you need to explain more things, you can write one sentence about what your company does as well.
Yeah.
Just so people get a sense. But I really like what you said about linking work you've done, because something I really believe on LinkedIn profiles is to show, not tell.
Yeah.
I see a lot of things like I'm a strong communicator and team builder, and all these are great qualities. I solve problems. I do all these things. But you're telling someone that you're those things.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot more strong if you show someone through the results and the work you've done. And so you can say you're results oriented, but actually just put some of your results in there and it'll show people that you're results oriented.
Yeah.
And then that also, if you have work that's public, link those to your profile. This is very helpful also for artsy people with portfolios. You can link your portfolios on there, and people can just go straight to your website, go straight to your work and see what you're about.
I have my YouTube videos linked on my LinkedIn channel or my LinkedIn profile, and sometimes I'm like, oh, should I take it off? Should I not? But I've left it on, and it's been fine. Like people do enjoy like getting to see my hobby in some way.
Yeah.
Especially since it's like trying to contribute in some way to a public domain.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's the thing about the LinkedIn profile too, is it allows you to humanize yourself a little more. Rather than like a Microsoft Word typed sheet of paper. Not that there's anything wrong with Microsoft Word. They're my parent company, so I love Microsoft.
Right. Microsoft's great.
Microsoft's so great. But I think it allows you to get a little bit more personality, a little bit more about you. And that section also comes in for like volunteering. So when I want to like, if I'm meeting with someone, one, I can look at their LinkedIn profile, get a little bit of their interest too, because that's something you can always bring up and talk about, especially if you're networking. I think you can learn a lot about someone through their LinkedIn profile.
So speaking of networking, one of your other tips was adding a note anytime you connect with someone, which is so I work in software API sales. Okay. So just to give you a context, so I'm using LinkedIn, I'm using SalesNav, and I'm connecting with a lot of people, and I always add notes, and my notes are always very specific.
Yes.
Like I am very specific, but you advise adding some sort of spice or something. So can you talk a little bit about, in the job market, if you're looking for jobs, if you're contacting companies, internal recruiters or external recruiters, what can you do in terms of adding notes?
Yeah. So for me personally, I tend to like to connect with people I know, because I think of my LinkedIn network as, if I want to ask a question about something or I want to be connected to someone else, would I feel comfortable reaching out to the person, or what context do I need that person?
Yep.
And so if it's a close friend, if they send me a connection and I just know them already, I will accept it. Yep. However, if a lot of other people, and my work gets shared on the platform a lot, and so there's a decent amount of people trying to connect with me. And so for a lot of people you're reaching out to, that might be the case for them too. And so adding a note is actually really important to learn of the context in which you know them and why this connection might be good.
Yeah.
And so for me, some people have started connecting with me through TikTok, and I'll accept the people that say, hey, I saw your TikTok and I really want to follow some of the work you're doing. And I appreciate that. And like, I want you to be able to do that, and I want to learn from you too. And so just writing that context is important, because you can get just a connection and you're just like, I have no mutual connections. It's kind of the same thing when someone follows you on Instagram or Facebook. You have no mutual friends and you're just like, how and like why?
Total side tangent here, but I'm in that exact category. I have like 6,000 connections, and I know like generously maybe 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
Like, is there actually a planned path for users like me that don't know their actual connections, and I don't feel comfortable like leveraging those connections to meet new people and stuff, like, you know what I mean?
I think it depends. I think more connections is always good, because you'll have more you'll get expanded on your searches, because depending on what kind of member, premium, not premium, you'll be able to see more people based on who you're connected to. But I think one of the most powerful things about LinkedIn is finding people you need to find. if there's a company you want to work at, chances are I know a couple people that maybe are second connected to them.
Yeah.
And you probably know this from using SalesNav all day. Warm leads are so effective.
Yes.
And just being able to say, hey, I know you because I went to school with our mutual friend. Can we chat about this? This is why I'm interested in talking to you. Yeah. That produces so much quicker and so much better results in just meeting people. And so that is kind of the thing. And so like, if you don't know that many of your connections, that's fine. It's not that they're bad. But I think quality connections are really important because those are the people you'll reach out to. So
I'll throw in a tip that I would use, and I say this, don't abuse this, because if you abuse it, it's not going to work for you. It's just going to annoy people. But it's something that I have found effective in getting my foot in the door for interviews, is I will find someone on the team or in the department of the company, of the job I'm going to interview for, or hoping to get an interview for, and I will message them on LinkedIn, or I guess it's mostly LinkedIn. I'll message them and just be like, hey, I'm considering this role. I don't say whether or not I've got an interview, right? Like I'm just like leaving that part out. I'm just considering this role. How do you like it? How do you like the company? You know, what things should I be looking out for? And then I've actually had that, so then that would lead to a very short conversation where the person says, yeah, I love it, you know, hope you join the team or something like that. And then just say, okay, great. Like, I just applied. Is there someone I can contact directly? And then now you're sort of having, even if you don't know someone who works at that company, you're sort of having a bit of a referral conversation. And depending on the vibe and depending if they're into it, you could rise to the top of the pile by doing that. Yeah. It definitely doesn't hurt, especially if you're... if you spam, that's when it hurts. But anyway. Especially if you come across as genuine and wanting to learn about the position. Because you're taking the time to do this, right? Yeah. And so I think it's a good check on when you write a message, just saying, would I appreciate receiving this message? 100%. Would I reply to this? Would I reply to this? And for the most part, you realize that if someone reaches out to you for help or advice, that you'd take time, maybe not do like a 2-hour chat with them, but you would take time to just answer their questions. Yeah. And I think that's the case for most people. Some people are busy and don't see it, but I think for the most part that is very effective in just like learning more about a situation or just even getting your name recognized. For people who are curious about becoming a data scientist, I noticed you started in sales originally, at least at LinkedIn. I don't know where you were before, but actually give us a quick little background on like where you went to school, what you went to school for, and then how did you get into data science? Yeah, so I've done a lot of random things. So me too. I went to school at Stanford and I studied economics for a bachelor's and public policy for a master's. Cool. And some of the work I had various internships there. I worked at a nonprofit for a little bit. I worked at a research assistant. I worked at a financial services company where I helped people with personal finance. I worked for the government, housing and urban development for a little bit. And then I did an internship with LinkedIn in the sales org. And then I converted to full-time into what's called the Business Leadership Program. And what that is it's a rotational program where you get to come in and do various core business functions. And so I started out as a recruiter. And so when I talk about LinkedIn tips and like thinking like a recruiter, that's where I'm coming from, because I did look through people's recruiting and help people get jobs at LinkedIn through that. Yep. And then I worked for customer service a little bit. And then during that time, I became really interested in the data. For me, I had a coding background from some of the classes I took in college. And so then I just became very obsessed with learning more about LinkedIn data and data in general. And so for that, I learned SQL and R kind of on the side. Cool. I started reaching out to many teams at LinkedIn that work with data just to do a little bit of side projects. Did you have any data science classes in school, or this was just all self-taught? No, I did not have any data science classes in school. Okay. I did have some CS computer science classes. Sure. So the coding background was there a little bit. Economics is good for teaching you stats and econometrics. And so regressions, basic stats were helpful.
I think what I really need to learn from SQL and R was data manipulation. And so the technical skills, resources are out there. I think a lot of people think, how do I get started?
Yeah.
And start with a Google. Start how you would doing anything else, and then start narrowing down from there on what you think you should learn. And I think there's a lot of resources out there. It's really just getting started. And then after that, being able to take that knowledge tangibly and then apply that to a project. It's kind of this similar to learning a language. You can do and repeat on an online course for a language, but you get better when you talk to people and you work with it. And you're dropped in a country for a certain amount of time and you're forced to use it. Yep. And so working on a side project, it can just be any sort of question you have about data, and just try to answer it, because what you'll have to do that is you'll have to find the data, you'll have to clean the data, you'll have to manipulate the data, you'll have to visualize in some way. And even if it's a simple bar chart or simple something like that, just getting used to that process is really, really helpful.
Does LinkedIn still have that rotational program?
So this rotational program is still there.
Yeah.
There's some uncertainties with COVID, but it's still a big part of LinkedIn entry-level talent.
Okay, cool. That's interesting. I looked at a rotational program at Facebook actually after I got laid off. But any hoot, I'm not laid off anymore. I've got a great job. So, but anyway, in any event. Can you tell me a little bit more about the statistics that you're finding and like what it is that you're studying at LinkedIn, like, and any other resources or metrics that people should be aware of?
Yeah, so some of the things I mentioned before, we're talking about hiring.
Yeah.
That is something I'm following really closely, because what we want to learn is how long does it take for hiring to get back to, quote, normal.
Yeah.
And how does that differ with different countries? And something we're finding right now is many countries are recovering faster than the U.S., which is kind of in line with what coronavirus cases have said as well. There are also different parts of the economy we're interested in. We also track job postings, and so we're seeing that job postings also reflect kind of like what's in demand at the time. So in March, the job postings that are really in demand really progress with the shutdowns. And so it started off with, for example, grocery store clerks, and that wave hit. Store owners were really in demand because people were trying to get their groceries before they got into shutdown. And then after that, it was a lot of medical people, as the front lines were having to get beefed up.
Yep.
And then so we're keeping an eye on that as it progresses. Also, something we're looking at is remote working. Because this is now a phenomenon that's been ushered in by the pandemic, I would say. And something I've learned looking at the data and just looking at other trends is that in a lot of ways, the pandemic is not really a change maker, but an accelerator, in that it is speeding along things that were happening already, just at a much quicker pace. And so we were beginning to see some of the inklings of remote work already before the pandemic. And now, I mean, we're talking here on Zoom. In another world, we might have been sitting down at a coffee table somewhere.
Totally.
Doing this.
I started a job during COVID.
Okay.
And I was onboarded completely remotely. And I had to realize and remind myself that people have been doing this for years.
Yeah.
Other people figured out the remote work. I've hired people remotely.
Yeah.
And trained them and onboarded them remotely. But when it was before COVID, it just seemed like a niche thing that some people were into. You know what I mean? This like work from home cult. Now it's like I'm part of it, but also I'm like going through all these experiences and thinking, oh, is that what so-and-so was going through when I onboarded them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's so relatable now. Anyway, I think something curious is to see what sort of tools come out or products potentially from LinkedIn in the remote work space to specifically target this. I'm assuming, I don't know, what can you say about that?
There's been some things. So we're trying to make our job postings more distinct.
Yeah.
And so there's been work done around that. And something else that was recently announced was a joint Microsoft LinkedIn announcement where we looked at, we're trying to be in the space of helping people get back to work.
Yeah.
And so for me, some research I've done is look at common career pivots and also skills overlap. And so my team has done a lot of research around, especially recent story we published was on retail, as well as restaurant workers, because those industries are very much in flux based on what cases say right now and how they're able to operate. And even if restaurants are able to operate, maybe it's not full capacity. And so looking at what are the skills that someone can take from this job into another thing. And some things we found are, if you sell things, you can train up to sell other things.
Yes.
So for example, if you're a bartender, you sell drinks. If you're a waiter, you sell food. You can train to sell houses, which is real estate. Yep. We've seen people make that career pivot, and there might be some certificates or training you need, but we've seen people make that pivot, or people become recruiters in terms of some of those service skills. If you work at a restaurant, you have great service skills, and that's a lot of what recruiters have to do in interacting with candidates. And so just realizing that there are similarities in all of these jobs that are very transferable, and I think some people are really stuck against a wall, and it's about being creative to realize what can you do, what can you get interested in terms of what is available as a job. So
as someone who stumbled on this video and is looking for a job right now and is in a place where there is not hiring in their specific space, how does someone go about figuring out, like, where do they even find resources to figure out what the potential pivots are that would actually lead to a hiring situation?
So I think we have some data on our LinkedIn site. I think it's linkedin.com/workforce. We have some data on skills and also common jobs in certain areas. But I think it's actually at a pretty personal basis as well, in terms of you thinking about what work you have done before, and particularly what skills that you have acquired through that, and thinking about where that could translate. And there are some common businesses, core businesses, in any type of company, in any industry. So every company is going to have some sort of HR, some sort of marketing, some sort of sales, typically. And so thinking about if that's something you want to do, or if there's an area or industry that you've always been passionate about, but you maybe didn't start off that way and your career got you in a different track, thinking about what types of jobs might be in that industry. And then after that, it's about, and it could be just going on LinkedIn and LinkedIn searching that company, and then you should see some of the open jobs involved. And then looking at some of the job requirements and thinking to yourself, can I make this change for myself? And then it's, do I need additional training? Do I need, because some things require certifications or licenses. So, for example, if you do transition to a healthcare role, you can become maybe a medical assistant or something like that. Or you can be a real estate agent. You have to pass some licensing exams. So wondering what that goal, first it's defining kind of the box you're in, what area of the box you want to move to, and then how to get there in terms of the steps you might need to take.
I think that's like a very tangible ask, to be like, okay, whatever you were doing for however long, boil down the key skills and then match them up to roles you're interested in that require those skills. Like, forget about the job titles and just focus on the skills themselves. And then like try to enumerate the stories of how you used those skills. And then the other sort of total secondary strategy is just like, go for your passion job, your dream job. Like, what thing are you super interested in? I watch a lot of HGTV. I know if I ever wanted to switch over to being a realtor, like, I got it. Like, I would absolutely, that would be like super fun for me, but I'm not.
Is that something you want to do?
I'm okay. Like, maybe I'll be I don't own a home right now. Maybe I'll buy another home someday, but no, not right now. I'm very happy doing software API sales. So
something to think about is if you're thinking about buying a house in the future at some point, you could just take the exam and then take a cut of the commission, sell yourself your own house.
Oh, that's true. You can cut out 3% of the cost.
Yeah, I mean, you could make money doing it if something you've already been interested in, and then start maybe networking with friends and saying, if you're buying a house, I can help sell that house too.
God.
And then it could grow from there. So
Dude, a year from now, you and I are going to be flipping houses. I guarantee it.
So maybe honestly, the spark just happened right here. So if you're thinking about buying a house, just put in that little bit more effort to get the license, get yourself some commission, and then the seed grows. Because when all your friends know that you can sell them a house, they would rather give you the commission than some random person.
Right.
And so maybe that's where it starts. And then now your real estate empire.
Side hustle. Hustle.
Yeah, okay.
That's what my YouTube channel is too. I have too many side hustles.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, is there anything you wanted to cover, wanted to talk about that I didn't ask about, but you definitely wanted to share with people who happen on this video?
Yeah, I think something coming from a point of looking at economic data is this time is tough for everybody.
Yeah.
And people's individual stories are very hard right now, but a lot of people are going through the same thing. And so I've talked to a lot of students who got their jobs rescinded or people who have been laid off. And there's a lot of uncertainty out there, and people are not alone in that. And so I think it's just realizing that this is something like we as a unit are getting through together, both in the public health space as well as both economically. And so I think everybody's going to make it through, and it's just seeing what that other side looks like and seeing what hopefully positive changes come out of accelerating some of these trends that we talked about earlier as well.
If people watch this video, and be careful what you wish for here, if people watch this video and they have questions or they want to reach out to you, where can they contact you?
So you mentioned you're going to drop my LinkedIn anyway.
All right.
There'll be feel free to follow me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I post a lot of economic data, also some fun data that I work on the side on there.
Yeah.
On TikTok, I am trying to make content that talks about data, in terms of data, speaks on data stories.
Yeah.
Something that I actually am really passionate about is making data and interpreting data and using data just more accessible and normal.
Yeah.
Because I think, especially now when we talk about a lot of sensitive issues, it's easy to just say things that you think are true, but just do a quick Google, look what the data says, and then confirm they're true, and then you're able to talk to someone else at just a much higher level. Because the data might tell you this is what the current situation is, and then the more powerful conversation when you're saying, okay, why does the data say that?
Yeah.
And so that is something I'm trying to foster on my TikTok as well. And then
what's your TikTok handle?
So it's at BRI_XU.
Okay.
So that's also most of my social handles as well, Instagram, Twitter.
Cool.
So for me, I also like doing data stories on the side if there's anything I'm just interested in. For me, it's a good way to help me research into a topic. And so especially when the Black Lives Matter movement was happening, I wanted to research more on issues affecting the Black community. And so I did a series on corporate diversity.
Yep.
And just it helps me research what is actually going on, because to produce a piece of data work, you actually need to be really solid about the ins and outs of what you're measuring and what you're presenting to people. And so that's helped me a lot. And so that's what I'm doing on my social channels on the side. And so if anybody wants to follow that, feel free.
I just really appreciate you joining for this call. I think this video has the potential to help a lot of people. So thank you, Brian.
Yeah, I hope so. And I'm always open for people to ask me questions. I tend to be a pretty good responder, but we'll see.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for checking out this video with Brian Hsu, the data scientist from LinkedIn. Brian, you were an incredible guest on my channel, and I really enjoyed the conversation we had. I hope to have you back in the future. If you're still watching and you really want to support the channel, please click the Amazon affiliate links in the description and subscribe to the channel. Until the next video, I will see you all later.